What is going on YouTube? My name is Travis and I want to thank you for tuning in to another TDH upload. I'm sure you've clicked on this video because you're wondering how to remove your carburetor from your Mercury or Mariner 25 horsepower. I want to say this is for the 1995 to 1999 year range. I could be incorrect with that. I don't have the data plate on my engine, just the serial number, and running the serial numbers, I haven't really been able to break down this specific year. Anyways, I'm going to show you guys the carb kit, the part number, and I'll show you both the engines because I do have a Mariner 25 that's here on the back of my Carolina skiff, and I also actually have a Mercury 25, which I know that they're produced by the same company, by Brunswick Corp, but I do want to show you guys just so that way you can get a better idea of what I'm working with, and I'll show you this carb kit and we'll dive right in. First things first, let me show you this Mercury 25. There's going to be a few differences between this Mercury 25 and the Mariner 25. They are exactly the same aside from these few bits. This one is a remote steer and a remote throttle, so it's going to have a little bit different linkages. You may have this set up, so I just wanted to show you guys. This is the electronic choke here. This one actually still has this little carb cover on there, so I might rob this off. I've been using this motor. It's a great motor. It has 125 psi in both cylinders within 10% of each other. Fires up, it runs, it just has a bent prop shaft down here, and you guys can see the amount of play and how that gap gets smaller and wider. And obviously this prop has seen better days. But that's not the point. I just wanted to show you guys. This is the Mercury 25 remote steering, remote throttle, and electronic choke. We'll move over to my Mariner that's identifying as a Mercury because my sticker came off, which kind of sucks. But this is the Mariner 25. And here we go. You guys can see these differences here. Got the linkage for the tiller set up with the cables. You can see that I do not have the electronic choke up here. I do not have the carb cover. And I've actually done away with the fuel bowl. The sediment bowl, whatever you want to call it. This one's got the filter and the bowl still on it. But you can delete that because it honestly becomes kind of problematic, and the filters nowadays, they do just fine. So now that you guys have seen the differences between these two motors, it gives you a general idea of what we're working with here. They are literally the same era of motor, same generation, I guess I should say. And then here is the carburetor kit that I bought. This is a Quicksilver one, Mercury, Quicksilver, whatever you guys want to call it. Part number is 1395-823-7072. And it comes with everything. Needles, springs, new fuel pump, diaphragm, everything. It's got all the good jazz. First things first, we're gonna go ahead and pull the carburetor off. Try not to make this so chatty, but there is quite a bit of explaining to do. You're gonna have to remove your primer handle or your pull to choke handle here. There's a little silver clip, that guy will come out right there. You pull that up and out, and then there's a set screw right down there. You pull that screw out, and when you do so, that allows you to pull the whole mechanism out. And then from there, we have to pull the starter with the ground wire, pull that one out, pull this guy out, swing the starter off, and that gives you access to the far nut that's over there. You can't really access it with the starter in the way. So that's what we're gonna be doing. I'll set you guys up on the tripod, we'll get to work. So come out, multi-pieces, and then you'll have this little guy. It should come out all together, but mine did not. We're gonna be pulling the starter out of the way now. All right, starter's out of the way. You guys can see we have now gained access to that nut there. I'm gonna go ahead and remove my fuel line and get ready to pull the carburetor off. next thing I'm gonna do is just remove this little arm here. That guy just sits up right in there. Pull that off, so that way it's off the carburetor. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen up this nut. A little bit of play on it. Let's see if it gets trick. Okay, it's a bit easier if you grab just a little stubby. You can fit in there, get those angles correct. Alright, let me go put these on my towel so that way I don't lose them. Should be able to swing her out as one unit. It's just the stud that you're going to end up fighting because it runs into the front of the cover. There you go. Carburetor is out. Okay guys, got my work area all cleaned up, everything all straightened up. I turned my overhead fan off. I don't know if I said it at the beginning of the video, but I'm in Florida and it's obviously the middle of freaking July. It is hot. So if you hear the fan come back on, it's because I'm dying in here. As you can see, I've got the carburetor laid out here. I'm gonna go ahead and remove these two 8mm bolts here, pull this piece off, set that to the side, and then we can start tearing into the carburetor. And if you're wondering about the piece that fell off in the beginning, that is it right there. This little end guy that actually slides down in here. And then you can see the grooves on the end of this guy right here, on this piece. And that's actually what is threading into that and allowing you to turn it back and forth. And it gets installed as one piece. But just so that you guys know, just in case. First thing first, I'm gonna go ahead and take out the bowl screw, because you can see I've got some gas dripping out of it and I wanna make sure I get all the gas out of it. I also have a rubber tip air hose. This will really help you get into the orifices and stuff, blow stuff out. We'll be chasing it all with carb cleaner. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the bowl screw first, or bolt, excuse me. There's my float. You guys can definitely see some debris built up inside of that bowl there. You can even see some on my finger, or my thumb right there. Awesome. There's my needle. That guy simply sits right down in here. When we go to remove this nut, there's going to be a spring and a ball inside of here, a very, very, very tiny ball. You do not want to lose that. And I forgot to tell you, there's a 12 mil to pull off the bowl, and I've got, pardon me, it was a 13 to pull off the bowl, 12 to pull off the lower. There's that little ball that comes out. Sorry, was not looking at the camera. You do not want to lose that. And if you look closely, there's a spring. And that's what the ball is actually sitting on, is that spring. So you do not want to lose those. Because I am not certain that it comes in the kit, the new kit. Now we're going to move our attention to the actual fuel pump here. Yeah, this thing definitely needed a gasket. Definitely. I did forget to note in the beginning of the video where my carburetor, or I suspected where it was leaking from. Let me grab a razor blade. But I was having some low idle speed issues. Well, excuse me, idle issues and low speed issues. It would idle all day long, just under load. It didn't sound very happy about doing the idling. Okay, here's the gasket we just pulled off. One that was sitting right here. Go ahead and set that to the side. Okay, I put up a little bit of a fight, but I was able to get the fuel pump separated from the fuel pump diaphragm. I didn't want to damage the actual brown piece here because you're going to be reusing this, but you're replacing the diaphragm obviously, but it'll sit together like this and it'll pop free. This took me a little bit of time to get it without boogering it up. All right, next thing is to start taking off what would be your electronic choke. I'm gonna pull this guy off, inspect that, and then we can start cleaning out the carburetor. There's that guy there. That's gonna have a gasket that you're gonna replace. I'm just gonna set it to the side for now. Put the screws in there so that way I notate where they go. Now we've got our needle. I'm gonna just check to see. I'm gonna run it in until it stops. There's half turn, one full turn. So about 1 3/4. Just a mental note. I think I'm probably gonna set it around 1.5 turns. Once it's bottomed out, you back it out about a 1.5, but I'll explain that when we do the install. We'll go ahead and pull the old needle out though. There she is. And other than that, got to pull out the float retainer and the float pin, and then if you look closely, there's another gasket right in here that we'll be removing. Looking pretty good. I'm gonna start going ahead and cleaning this sucker up. Okay, I got her cleaned up a bit. Just took a little Scotch-Brite pad and cleaned up the surfaces where my gaskets will be sitting. Gotta clean this up a bit more, see if I can't do it with the air hose. Secondly, you want to make sure that you are replacing your spring and your pad here, whatever you guys want to call it. I'm not quite sure of the terminology that you want to call it. I guess injector spring and plug. That's what they describe it as in the rebuild kit, but you want to replace that. Comes with the new hardware for that guy. And then while you're at that, you can grab your bowl plug. I threw the new filter on there just to go ahead, and it does come with a spare BB, little round ball. Even though I bagged mine up, it does come with a spare one and a spring. You guys can see the spring and then a new O-ring. So I've got those guys set aside here behind the camera on my other mat. Here's the new float, and then obviously you've got a new needle. So I've got all those guys set aside. What I'm gonna do now is go ahead and peel this diaphragm off best that I can and get it replaced. There's the old diaphragm there. Just gonna go ahead and give this a rinse out with some carb cleaner and then start cleaning the carburetor itself. All right, now that I blasted out the carburetor with some carb cleaner, let it sit in there for a couple minutes, then I chased it out with my air nozzle with that rubber tip, blasted all these little crevices, all the main jets, the low speed jets, everything that I could to get much debris, gummed up stuff, all that nonsense out of the carburetor. And now we're gonna go ahead and start reassembling at least the fuel pump side, and then we're gonna move to the plunger side here and the float side. So if you pay attention to how you removed it, you'll see where your spring sat for this plastic piece. So you'll know that it sits upside down like this into the cover. So when you grab your new one, because it'll look pretty fresh, you want to, be sure that you're putting it in the correct spot. And this guy's gonna be setting down right here on this cover that we just cleaned up. I'm gonna hit it just a little bit more on these edges just to clean this up with some Scotch-Brite, and we should be ready. Surface is all cleaned up. We can go ahead and start getting this thing ready for reinstallation. There's little clips, little dowels. Hard for you to see them, but the little dowels will sit into the cover. That's how you know you've gotten it flush. Don't want to forget this gasket. And you guys can see it's not lined all the way up. You want to make sure you get those dowels lined up. Just heard that click. That was it popping into place. Just want to make sure it's seated all the way around. You can snug up these two screws. I didn't tighten them down all the way, just snug enough to where I can kind of get this thing to wiggle around just in case the rest of the bolts, or excuse me, screws don't want to line up. Okay, now I can go around, snug the rest of the screws up. I'm kind of working a little star pattern real quick, and then I'll snug them all up. One more turn in a circle here. All right. Simple enough. As far as this top guy goes, obviously there's a little gasket for it. Just gonna drop these two screws out of the way real quick. Pull this gasket off. Swap it with the new one. Alright, that guy's snugged up. Now I'm gonna leave the bowl and all of that jazz just for the time being. I'll go ahead, lay my gasket in there. Go ahead and drop my needle in there. Grab the new swing arm with the fangs pointing downwards. Float swing arm, excuse me. Sorry guys, I wanted to interrupt you real quick. I said that backwards. The fangs are pointing downward to the top of the carburetor, not downwards towards the bottom. I'm sorry for that confusion. I apologize about that. All right, now that that's all complete, we're gonna go ahead and pull the bowl apart and this diaphragm here. Now we're gonna go on to cleaning the bowl, pull out this diaphragm and get all these parts swapped out here. You'll immediately see your spring. Swap that out with your new one. That way you notate which one is the new one and which one's the old one. And now that you have it apart, we can go ahead and start blasting it out with some carb cleaner and some air, because she needs it. While we're letting that clean up, do its thing, we have this little plunger guy here. This will be replaced. We've got this cap here. That guy just... Man, I hope I got that. I did not realize that I was zoomed all the way in. I am so sorry, guys. We pulled this plunger out like so. There's the new one with the gasket already on it. But you'll have this little black guy, this little cap. This cap can come off too. And you'll have a spare one in your kit. Little lip that it sits on. Let's pop that guy off. We're gonna go ahead and clean this all up. Nice and pretty, dry. Go ahead, put my new little rubber cap on. Your old one's gonna be pretty hard unless someone's been inside of it before. Because I know mine was like a brick. Awesome. This guy drops in like so, falls back in the dowels. That's ready to reinstall. We've been letting this hang out for a bit in the carb cleaner. I'm gonna go ahead and start blowing it out. I'm gonna go wash my hands real quick. Hands are all clean. Had to grab a Zen. Not sponsored by them, but if someone over in, I think it's Sweden, I think that's where they're from. They're a Swedish company. If you guys wanna show some love, support the channel, holler at your boy. t.smith24v as in Valve or Victor at gmail.com. All right. This is all cleaned out. This is all dry. It did look like a bit of trash in there, but it looks like it might be some pitting. I'm gonna grab my pick real quick and just pick at that just to see if I can't get anything off of it. Yeah, it looks like it might be just a little bit of corrosion. Maybe somebody was using ethanol gas or something and left it filled up, because it's not chipping off and it seems to be rather clean. So I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to reinstall this guy. Okay, back to what I was originally doing. Idiot, I was trying to put the old one on. Guess what I forgot too? My spring. Jeez. Maybe my Zen's getting me all jacked up. I'm just playing. Joke. Just getting a little ahead of myself.
Crossing each other there. Snug it up. That way I can let 2 screws in.
Okay, now that guy's back together, we can carefully grab our little cap and our little BB. And I'm gonna do this from the underside. I'm gonna set the BB into the spring that sits inside there. Flip it upside down. Get the threader in. That way you know you didn't drop it. Snug this up just hand tight, doesn't have to be crazy. There you go. I'm gonna go ahead and blow off that little bit of debris there. All right, now that guy's reassembled. Now if you remember, I already went ahead, dropped the gasket in there. I've got my float in there. We can go ahead, and also my needle is already in there too. Just hanging out under there, you guys can see. Put the float back in. And we can bolt her down. I'm gonna clean this out also before I install it. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I just sprayed some carb cleaner down the little jet there, came out either side of the banjo bolt, and then I blasted some air, and we are good to go. And one thing I do want to note, since we're on this reinstallation section here, sorry, let me adjust this, that your float, when you pull it off, if you didn't pay attention, the smooth side is going to be the bottom side of the bowl. So when you flip it upside down, you'll have this side with the lip that's facing downwards inside of the bowl. Don't want to forget your gasket. And you can snug it up just hand tight. All right, we got that reassembled. We can go ahead and throw our new needle in, fuel mixture needle or fuel mixture screw. And like I said, I'm gonna run that sucker all the way down until it bottoms out. Okay, bottomed out. We're gonna go 1.5. So here's 1 full turn, and then a half, and then just slightly over, and that's how it was from factory. All right, we got all our old parts set aside here. That should be everything. This was our old ball, spring, and plug. That's all been replaced. Other than that, I'm gonna go ahead and pull you guys out of the stand here. You guys can see that I have a few bits left over. I don't think I'm gonna be replacing any of these guys. These are throttle return springs, the C-clip for it, and a couple of these small brass plugs and screws. I won't be bothering with any of those. Not what I pulled out, just what I didn't pull any of these out. I'm just putting back in what I did pull out. Pardon me. Now that the carburetor is all reassembled, you want to make sure you got your new gasket there, and you want to make sure that you pull your old gasket off. That way you don't get confused or accidentally double gasket it. There's my old one. Sorry guys, I accidentally hit the record button, but just toss the old gasket to the side. I'm gonna go ahead and just wipe this down with a little bit of carb cleaner, and then slip the new gasket on, and then we're ready for the carburetor to go on. There's the surface where the gasket was, so you make sure you want to clean that up just to be smart. We'll go ahead and throw our new gasket on the engine. Just bring you guys with me over there. New gasket's on. Let's go ahead and throw this carburetor on. So I'm going to put the carburetor on, and then I'm going to attempt to put the little plastic piece back on, so that way I don't have to fight it. It may come back to haunt me, but we will see here shortly. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. You guys know how it came apart, so go ahead and snug these up, and I'll check in with you guys in just 1 second. All right, the little plastic piece here, I did remove it from the carburetor when I pulled the entire carb, but now I'm going to attempt to install it right here on the face of the carb. Okay, we are back. Note, it is much easier to put this on with a carburetor outside of the outboard. I guess that was kind of common sense, but I tried it anyways. Kind of a tight fit. See how tight it is? Because you've got to swing this little guy in right here into the actual throttle arm at the same time that you're lining up the bolt holes of the carb to the stud. There we have it. Okay, next is getting the little plastic piece back in there. So when you guys took it apart, you'll realize that it came out in 2 pieces, and you'll see this kind of, I don't know what to call that, angled little piece of plastic there. It's simply just going to fit in like that, and that allows you to thread it. So I'm going to install it like this, push it in, set our retaining screw, and then we can push this black cap in and then put the silver piece back on, the little retainer clip. Okay, it's a little tough for me to install this and explain this at the same time, but I just want to show you guys. So when you pull out that little valve that we replaced earlier in the carburetor, this little arm, when you pull out, this is what's choking the engine out. Now if you look closely down in there, you see this little like indentation and this little nubbin. That is what's sliding back and forth on this arm. So when you go to install this, what you want to do is slide in without clipping this on first. You want to slide this in and then push this down and make sure that it latches in there. You want to make sure that you get that little knob, that little indentation in place, so that way your choke is functional. And then when you twist it, I believe that leans it up a little bit, and that richens it up a little bit. So I think for cold starts, you'd pull this, give her a couple tugs or hit the starter, and then you can dial it, fire her up, let her warm up, and then as she warms up, you can dial her out. But that is that. The carburetor is in place. I'm going to go ahead and connect the fuel. We'll prime her up, hook her up to some water. Oh, well, first I got to bolt the starter up, and then I'll hook up fuel, and then we can run her on some water, see how she does. All right. I apologize for that little interruption. I had a buddy pull up. We ended up talking and chit-chatting for a few minutes, so I got a little distracted here. But as you can tell, it's a bit darker now. The motor fired right up first try. We primed the bulb up, put some fuel into her, and she didn't even hesitate to turn right over. I'm very, very, very happy with that Quicksilver kit, OEM Mercury, whatever you want to call it. It has done great. So let me just go ahead and fire her up one more time for you guys. Go ahead and hit the power switch, and we'll bump the starter. Definitely have to throw her in the water, put some load on her, some resistance against her, and see how she acts. I was having a hard time at low RPMs, kind of just putting through the water to get a nice clean, I guess you can call it rev, or not necessarily an idle, but just slightly above idle. She really didn't like it, so I'm very, very happy with the overall outcome. As you guys can see, I got a hydrofoil on here too. Me and my friend were talking about that. I'm probably going to go ahead and install that before we take her out, just to see if it helps my whole shot. But she's good to go, guys. I'm very happy with the carb kit and the rebuild. Seems to work wonders. Well, folks, that is a wrap on the carburetor kit rebuild. Lost my sticker, so that ought to work for me. I'm gonna get the hydrofoil installed and take her out on the water. I'll take you guys with me. Other than that, real simple install. Just a few bits of parts to change and some basic tools. You guys can knock this out. So, hope you guys enjoyed the upload. Have a good one. Later.